Welcome to the Grit.org podcast with Colby Harris and Brian Harbin. In these episodes, they speak to top achievers in athletics and business to understand the habits and mindset they apply in order to build more grit.
Welcome to the Grit.org podcast. My name is Colby Harris. Alongside me today is Brian Harbin, and we are here with today's guest, Missy Cady-Kampmeyer. Missy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is a pleasure.
Absolutely. So born in South Dakota, Missy has lived through an interesting, trying, and exciting 5 decades. She is one of 5 kids and grew up in a very tightly knit home where she learned a lot of the values and principles she still lives by to this day. Her dad has a PhD in English literature, and in her high school years, her mother was a head cheerleader on the swim team and the homecoming queen. Relocating to Florida in the 80s during her early teen years, her family started Cady Studios, a family-based photography company focusing on school yearbook photos and school-related lifestyle sessions. What started as a small family business grew to a massive photography operation, servicing over 350 schools in 2021. Missy was there from the beginning, problem-solving and working with the clients at Cady Studios while raising kids of her own. In 2013, when she took an interest in real estate, she saw it as an opportunity to change directions while also still helping people and helping guide them to their forever home. After learning the ropes at prestigious brokerage Berkshire Hathaway, she joined her brother's team here in Jacksonville. They created a top-tier real estate team using their passion for people and values learned from growing up in a work-centric home. After her brother made plans to relocate to Atlanta, Missy bought out the team and in the next few years turned it into her own brokerage, Cady Realty, still keeping with the family name and traditions. She has spent the last few years growing Cady Realty into one of the top brokerages in Jacksonville through their integrity, personable personalities, and never-ending care for the consumer. When she's not growing her business, she likes to spend her time hanging out with her husband and friends and enjoying out-of-the-beaten-path places to eat, working out at Orange Theory, running races, or doing yoga with her team, and meeting new like-minded individuals in our community. So again, Missy, welcome. Very happy to have you here today. I had the pleasure of first meeting you during summer 2021 while I was out selling corporate sponsorships. For those of you who don't know, for Grit Camp, we seek local corporate sponsorships from businesses to help send kids to camp who otherwise may not have the opportunity to. And I was just so ecstatic to talk to you as you absorb the concepts and values of Grit.org so well. You also sponsored 3 kids to come to camp, which we were so appreciative of. But nonetheless, I'm so impressed with the things you've done in your professional career. And what I love so much is you credit all your success to putting the consumer first, which is something so rare to see in business these days. But let's go ahead and roll into it. So diving right in, I know you had quite an interesting upbringing through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So we know you were born in South Dakota, but can you tell us a bit more about growing up and the position you and your family were in at that time?
Absolutely. So I never really even talked about it very much, but it shaped who I was. And I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, born in 72, so you can do the math. In a very fundamentalist, religious, Bible-based background. And as my parents came out of the 70s, they were idealistic, great humans. But as time went on, that religion turned a course and became very restrictive and very rule-based instead of Bible-based. And it became a facade. To me, it was a facade. It became hypocrisy. And the values did not line up to what truly my parents were, who they were. And over time, it became more of a restrictive type of way of living. And it just never, ever aligned with my soul. I grew up with parents that were hardworking and loved people, especially the underdogs. That was just, they would always reach out and be drawn to help others. And religion took its course and left the basis of what it should be and became more fear-based, more money-driven, and I fought it. It was not me.
Yeah, I can really understand that and can't really imagine what those years were like for you as, you know, you guys kind of were battling the certain principles and values that they were trying to place on you. And I know you guys soon after ended up living in Lake City. So can we go ahead and start there as well? As you said, you know, there were positives that came out of it. It wasn't all bad. You were blessed with amazing parents, amazing siblings, great family. What was it like once you moved to Lake City, and can you share a little bit more with us about the inception of Cady Studios, the photography business?
Yeah, so when I was 13, my dad got a job offer transfer. He went from teaching in the university to selling yearbooks with Herff Jones, and he taught journalism and yearbook classes. He got a job offer in Florida to be transferred with Herff Jones. Subsequently, it was also when the church that we were a part of was all transferring to one central location, which was Lake City. He took that opportunity and moved his entire family to Florida. And like you said, their hardworking background and their love for people is what kept us who we were. But my dad started with the yearbook business, and then as my brothers and I grew up in that, it started to be where we would come up with the ideas of photos just were so boring. Everything was boring. It was flat. There was no life to the photos. Subsequently, my brothers were like, let's create the narrative of what yearbooks should look like. Let's show the kids who they are. Let's create lifestyles. Let's tell their story of them. Thus started Cady Studios. It was started with an idea that one of my brothers had. He went, and I believe he was 18 years old, and he signed 4 contracts here in Jacksonville. One was with Wolfson, Providence, and Bowles. And we started Cady Studios. Did not own a camera, had never taken a photo, but hard work and entrepreneurship created what it was. He sent my 16-year-old brother to New York City to go buy a camera because there was a camera show. And I was the problem solver. And so when they took the photos, they brought them to my house. I was able to take yearbooks from previous years, match names, faces, and thus was the start of what they created.
That's amazing, and especially doing that as a teenager, the passion, the hard work, and learning a lot about business and the skills you need to run a successful company. So can you tell us a little bit about some of your day-to-day back then and some of the key values you learned at that time?
So I would say no is not an answer. No is not in our vocabulary. The word can't is not in the vocabulary, and you just figure it out. You're problem solvers, and when something comes up that you don't know what to do, you figure it out. You put your heads together. And my family's very collaborative, and that is what goes into my business now to this day. And that is bringing our strengths to the table, everyone bringing their strengths and creating that team. And that was what drove us to where we were.
Yeah, I love that. And it wasn't too much later into your life in Florida that you actually connected with your husband and married at just 15 years old. Something really not too common for that time, as my grandparents, my grandma, she married my grandfather at just 16 years old. So nonetheless, you married at a young age and continue to help it any way you could at Cady. Like you said, problem solving and just refusing to say can't, refusing to say no, just always finding solutions for everything. And by 19, you would have your first child. So can you tell us more about that time and what it was like for you to try to maintain a marital relationship, grow a business, and be raising kids of your own as well?
So that was, when we're 15, and that was kind of the beginning of where the church we were at started changing gears. And when I got married, when you're surrounded by that environment, it becomes, that is just what it is. It's normal, it's natural. And my motto in life is to throw everything at something at 100%. So if I'm going to get married at 15, I'm going to go all in on it. If I'm going to have children, I'm going to go all in. And that truly was my survival. And marrying my husband, he allowed me to be who I was. My identity was never taken away. And in the environment that we were in, that was a very rare thing. So I will credit so much to him for loving me that 1,000,000% to allow me to be me. And it was never stifling my creativity, never stopping my ideas, backing me up 100%. And so having that, we both had a very like-minded approach to life, living life at 100%, giving all, enjoying every moment, living in the now. Not always focusing on what was going on over here, but if we were raising kids or if we were going on a vacation or whatever we were doing it in the now.
Being present is so important. And I think the position you were in at that time as well, to have a husband like that, as you mentioned, it really worked out for you well. And that's why you guys have had such a strong relationship. So there was obviously a lot to get done. I mean, the business is rapidly growing. Like you said, you have kids of your own now. And you even worked them in before they were even teenagers, which I love and fully support. I've always said I would have loved to just have a family business to get involved in, rather than running food at 14, 15, be on the inside of the business, running QuickBooks, anything of that nature. So can you tell us more about that time with your kids and kind of how you got all of them involved at a young age?
So because we lived in Lake City, we worked in Jacksonville. That was where, that was part of the criteria of the studios, is we had to have a brick and mortar in Jacksonville. So we would get up at 4:30 in the morning, I'd load all the kids up in the car, and we did virtual school. Fortunately, Florida Virtual Online was my salvation. And we would go down to the studio at Kings and Prudential in San Marco, and they had their little TV stations, and they did school. And once they were done with that, they integrated into the life of us at the studio. One of my sons ran the shipping department. One of my sons balanced all the money that came in. He was brilliant with math. My daughters, they were all, if they were too young to do anything in the studio, they were cleaning the bathrooms. They were running the printer. They were stuffing envelopes. So it was just that family hard work. And if you ask them today, they're now 24 to 30. They have the fondest memories of those times because every day was an excitement. Every day was fun. It was, let's go to the Loop and my dad had the one thing he only always ate. And so we would say, let's go get Grandpa's burger. Or I think I told you about once a week, we pretended we lived in New York City. And because the People Mover, which was right outside our studio, we would get on that, go across the river, there was this little, I don't even know the name of it anymore, but it was a Brooklyn-style pizza place. And so we were eating New York-style pizza. We would go to Hemingway Park, which was our central park. And then sometimes we would go up the Empire State Building to the top of the Bank of America and sit up there. And it's just creating those feelings and living in the now, but working hard. But the skills that they learned and the skills I learned doing those things those are things money can't buy. There's not training for it. There is not schooling for it. It's that hard work, working together, figuring it out, never giving up mentality that creates what we have today.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And, to combine all of that into one, the hard work, the perseverance, the creativity, as a parent. And you guys were full on in the trenches. I mean, you're putting in 18-hour days, running a business, running a family, keeping your marriage at center. So I have to ask, how did you guys decompress, or how did you stay centered at that time in your life?
So because of the lifestyle we had, it was either church or work. We also loved to travel, which was kind of taboo with what we lived in. But we went to North Carolina on a vacation one year, and we bought a cabin, sight unseen, at an auction on a rainy Sunday. And we bought a cabin, and we renovated it, and it was our lifesaver for years. And we would work hard all week. Very hard. But Friday come roll around, the kids knew what to do. They packed their bags. They had everything sitting by the door. And when Steve got back from work, we loaded up in the car. We got our Little Caesars for the road, and we drove. And sometimes we were only there for 48 hours. But that reboot was like life to us. But it also created a sense of family, adventure, it's just our four walls. We would have this saying, what happens in our four walls stays in our four walls. And that was our, this is our deal. This is our lifesaver.
It's awesome. And you guys did, in fact, continue that routine for many years to come, working hard through the week and taking the weekends to kind of decompress, focus your mind elsewhere, spend quality time with each other. And I know you said it was kind of a fixer-upper too, so
it was.
Learned a little manual labor in the process, which again is another one of those things you just can't put a price on. You put a kid out to fix a roof or fix a porch, and they'll learn more in 12 hours than they might in 12 weeks. So
absolutely, they complained a lot then, but now it's just fond memories. But they will say, do you remember when we'd get up at 6 and mow the lawn before we could even go down to Jelly Bellies to get a treat?
Yeah, earn a little reward. I think that's the best way to do it too. Yeah. But as mentioned, Cady Studios, now just Cady, has grown over the years immensely. Now, as mentioned again, servicing 350 schools in 2021, which is just incredible after hearing where everything started and not even being able to work a camera. So you love the interactions you had. You love the impact you had while you were there and kind of the whole experience of it. You could really impact people. But at some point, you started to feel an itch for something new, a new routine, but more importantly, a new challenge for you. So can you tell us about what came next and really how you decided to break into real estate as a new career for yourself?
So I've always thought in my life that if something scares you, that's what you should probably do. And it's really the hardest thing for you. Being in a family business was a comfort zone. It was very challenging because family's challenging. But also, I always had a desire to want to do something on my own. Always. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to do something. And like you said about the studio and the kids and making an impact, that always shaped me. I wanted to do something for people because it's the interaction with people that make my heart sing, truly. It's people. It's the conversations. It's what I learned from them. It's getting to meet you guys and the organic, authentic moments that happen in life. So I started to do a lot of thinking about what I should do. My brother, in the meantime, one of my brothers decided to go ahead and get out of the studio into real estate. My father retired, and the dynamics of the real estate the studio kind of went from family to more corporate style. And I got a part-time job at site sales, selling new home sales. And I think there'd be one person a week that would stop into this center. And I was like, I'll get my real estate license. So I studied during that time, got my real estate license, put in my notice, and decided to become a single agent. And had zero idea what that meant. Went online, put my name in, and landed with an interview with Berkshire Hathaway here in Jacksonville. And it just grew from there. It was like I found what I wanted. I couldn't believe the people, and it was like the universe had brought the people to me. I was like, oh my God, all these people are helping me. Thus was the start of that.
I love it. And I can definitely relate to that transition of going from, when I went from being in insurance for over 10 years to starting a domain brokerage from scratch. It's a big leap of faith.
It is.
But what would you say would be some of the things that you started to learn as you were in real estate? What were some of the key takeaways from that?
I think the things that I learned the most is listening to others and actually really hearing what they're saying. And I have found that my life lessons have come from the people that my path has crossed. I will credit so much of my learning from what I've learned from others. And I believe that if you're willing to open up to hearing what other people say, knowledge is power. And I can't know everything. And there's not even book learning, but it's the life skills you learn from listening to people, understanding, and it's the skills of taking situations that happen and really coming to the table with multiple ideas like, okay, what can we do? How can we hold this together? What is the deal? And it's really not just a transaction. It might be a divorce situation where the husband and wife are, at odds, but yet there's crushed feelings and there's emotions and there's children that have tears streaming down their face because they're leaving their home. And it's like, what can I do? What can I do as a human to make that better?
Yeah, that's amazing. And you definitely, I feel like, supply that. And from everything I hear and everything that you've been able to do is that, as you've said, is just your favorite part about it.
Yeah,
it's getting involved and being able to leave an impact in the people that you get to work with. And you always say they are more than clients to you. And after a few years there at Berkshire Hathaway, you ended up joining your brother. You guys had built out a team here in Jacksonville, and then he kind of end up deciding to move to Atlanta a little bit on a limb. But this was a great opportunity for you, as you didn't want to just settle for having a team as well. You slowly transformed the team into a brokerage company, which then became Cady Realty. Can you tell us more about the years you spent taking Cady Realty into the brokerage stage, how that process went down, even back to kind of how you acquired the team in the first place from your brother?
Yeah, so he called me, it was a December 29th, and I was a team member on his team. And he asked me if I ever thought of buying the team out from him, which if you knew my family, that meant he had already decided I was going to buy the team and it was going to happen yesterday. So I was, of course, no, I had never thought that thought, but what do you have in mind? And he said, I've decided to move to Atlanta. The studios are going to open up, start an Atlanta studio. And I was going to see if you want to buy the team out. And I was like, when are you thinking of this? And he said, January 1st. Like, of course. So again, the whole motto of if it scares you, you should do it. That scared me unbelievable because I, first off, didn't have the funds. My headspace said, you can't own a team. I'm just a team member. I've always been a team member. So I was talking to my husband. He was like, what do you have to lose? But what do you have to gain? The worst case scenario or the best case scenario are all the same. Go for it. So ended up buying the team, became a team leader. And what I found was that I was able to take all the lessons and all the things that I knew as a team member and create my team from that aspect. And, the saying is, you're only as good as the leadership is. And I found that because I was a team member in the trenches for so many years, taking all the things that I wanted for myself created what I have today. And coming, full circle, it was also my team that started to support me because I gave them back that value. They then started pushing me. And that was actually my office manager was the one that she was like, you really should try to open a brokerage and become a broker. I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I should do that. And again, if it scares you, go for it. So doing that, it transitioned from being a team member, a team owner, opening a brokerage. And that independence and creating what we really were and being able to be us was just, it was like the ultimate pinnacle of what I ever wanted.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing to note that that's what you said that really I think stands out to me is what makes great business owners and great leaders is when you take everything you've learned and compile it into something that you can pass on, which I feel like Brian's done so well here through Great University, yes. The podcast now, Great Camp as well, is taking everything you've learned and be able to pass on the wisdom, the ethics, the values in a form that's really absorbable too. Yeah. I feel like that's such a big thing in relating back to them. So nonetheless, it really seemed everything was working in your favor. Amazing kids, successful real estate brokerage, residing in one of the fastest growing cities in the U.S. where, we get to thrive in the sun 9 out of 10 days. Yeah. So like I said, it really seemed everything was going your way. And, when people refer to life as a roller coaster, I feel like it really makes sense. Your highest highs come with the steepest drops into the lowest of lows. And in 2017, sure enough, your husband was involved in a very serious car accident, which is something I would love to talk about, as I feel like it would probably resonate with a lot of our listeners. So if you don't mind, I would love to hear more about that time and kind of how you went through it, as I'm sure it just required a lot of mental, physical, and emotional resilience, especially with your own kids around. So nonetheless, if you could kind of share more about that time for you and really how you overcame that.
So yes, roller coaster. It was the most challenging thing I've ever gone through in my entire life. More than standing up for my rights in a cult, more than walking away from that, was getting a phone call that he had been in a car accident. I was in New York City on a girls' trip, my first ever girls' trip. Had decided to finally take some time out for myself for 3 days. And I had called him the night before. We always call each other, tell each other goodnight, I love you, and make sure everything's okay. And I had called him, but he didn't answer. And it was my first instinct, oh, that's a little odd, but I knew that he had been traveling. I figured he probably fell asleep. It was late for me. Next day I woke up, didn't really think anything of it, got a call at about noon, and he had been a John Doe for 24 hours. And he was crushed alive in a vehicle. He hit a de-icing truck in Tennessee. And from what the witnesses have told us, that he hit the truck to avoid someone standing in the road. And so he has had no recollection of it. But the phone call I had was that he was on life support and there was no brain activity, and that somebody needed to be there within the next several hours because he was not going to make it. I called my daughter, who was in Nashville, and she made it to the hospital first. And when we all got to the hospital, all of my kids, we flew there, we made it there. We were met with that I had to make the decision to stop the process, because both Steve and I had signed a do not resuscitate, and that we didn't want to be in that state. His mother, I'm sorry, this is a little hard for me.
No, please take your time.
His mother his mother had been in had a horrible stroke, and she was left incapacitated. And he had said, I don't ever want to be in that state. And same with me. We live life too full, and we don't want that. We did not want that. But because of the accident, his driver's license was not found, and none of those instructions were given. And so they restarted his heart 5 times. And if they had not, it's just the way the universe goes. Here we had signed, we had already planned, but God had different plans for us, obviously. And when we got to the hospital, they told us, we had to make this decision. And my children absolutely went ballistic over it, to the point they laid on his bed in the hospital and said, you will never pull his plug. So we gave it 12 days. I don't know why 12. There was no really reason for 12. And on day 11, my daughter said, Dad just gave me our signal. And that signal was, when they grew up, he would always squeeze their hand 3 times. And she was like, Mom, Dad squeezed my hand 3 times. And I said, I don't know, honey. And so the doctors came in and they were like, Steve, if you can hear her, give him the signal. And you watched his hand 3 times, and the monitors went and everything. And fast forwarding to today, they told me he would not walk, he would not talk, he would not remember, he would not, our life as what was over. And to this day, he walks, he runs, he remembers. There are definite things that have changed our lives. He's had 19 reconstructive surgeries, so his mobility is limited. He lives in pain every single day. But I have him back. But I have a better version. We have a better version, because now, if we thought we treasured life before, I just will never live in that space of when things just are not a big deal. It just does not matter if you don't get that parking spot. It just does not matter if you don't, it just doesn't matter. And I think that, for me, has shaped even more so. I look at life with whole different eyes. And my kids have their dad. I have my husband, and he's my person.
And I really love that, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And I think that's even something I've gotten just from spending the time around you that I have, and into today talking about what that relationship has meant to you from being as young as you were and everything that you had to overcome. And I remember being at the office with you, and as we sat down and discussed your background, everything you had been through to get ready for the episode, I remember he had came into the office, and I could just see, this glow in your eyes, to see him walking, communicating, carrying boxes for you, doing small errands.
He does all of the stuff now. He doesn't have a job. He lost all his job. He was a landscape architect, but now we just work together, and he does all the things the list of things to do. And I tell him that it's his reward, really, for laying down his life for 30 years working blood, sweat, and tears. And now it's my turn, and we just do it together.
And one thing I want to ask you about too is, I know you said during that time, and kind of ties back into everything you've always said about, the clients and the people you work with are so much more than just a transaction, and it goes so much deeper than that. So can you kind of tell us about that experience as the people that surrounded you and helped you through that time?
I believe that has changed me. That whole situation and that experience changed me more than anything I've ever gone through. But when Steve was in the hospital, I had more clients reach out to me who are truly my friends. I sold a house to a doctor and his family here in Jacksonville, and he called every single day to the hospital, and he'd say, how are you doing? And I was a mess. I didn't know. I mean, I was like, my world was shattered, and I couldn't even put anything together. And he'd say, give so-and-so the phone. So I would hand the phone to the doctor or the nurse, and they would give the rundown, and then he'd get me back on the phone, and he'd say, this is all I need you to hear. This 1, 2, 3. I want you to think of this. This is all you need to hear. Do not listen to the other. This is all you need to hear. And he would step me through what it would mean and what was going on. They didn't have to do that. I had people that I sold houses to that would call me and say, just cry, just ugly cry. And I would just cry my brains out. And then she would say, all right, girl, pull your big girl pants up. Time to go back in there. To me, it's about the relationships, and those people literally saved my life through this. And for me to give that back, and I think I told you this, selling houses is the relationships that last beyond the transactions. It is not about selling the house. It's about what you can create, whose life you can touch, who the experience is. It's that. It's things money cannot buy. Bottom line.
Definitely. And that's exactly what I was going to say as soon as you were finishing up. It's just something money can't buy. No. And you can never put a price tag on it. And that's even something me and you have discussed before in real estate as somewhat of a sales position, commission based, kind of being a commission hound. That's one of the things that hurts young real estate agents so much. But bringing it back into present day, again, thank you so much for sharing that. Of course, we are so happy that he's doing well now and everyone still has him around, and that we just get to keep pushing forward. And I do love the saying, things don't necessarily happen to you, but for you.
Yeah,
and you never know what could have happened had you been in New York that week.
Right.
Something could have happened to you. And then, the flights, everyone just kind of the butterfly effect, so to say. So nonetheless, bringing it back into present day, I know you have a big, exciting announcement about Cady Realty for 2022. Can you please tell us about this next big shift and why you're so excited for this new chapter for your brokerage?
So about 9 months ago, I was approached by Compass International to partner with them to grow my business. And my first initial reaction was absolutely not. This was something I had worked so hard at. I don't want to lose my independence, me being the independent person I am, or the maverick that I am. I was like, no, not interested. But as they would continue to come back and talk with me, I found that it was the first big box company that my values aligned with. And it was not just what they said, it was what they did. And as you know, I'm very big at that. It's not about the words that you say. I grew up in that. You can say all the great words. I can quote everything you want, but show me the action. I want to see it. I want to feel it. And it was the same thing. Talking with them, they were genuine, and what they said, their values matched mine. So fast forwarding today, I actually signed an agreement to partner with Compass to grow my business. And what that will allow me is to get out of the minutia of the paperwork and all of the broker style details that started to weigh me down. And what I found was that those things were not my highest and best. My highest and best is being able to be creative, to talk with the people, to kiss the babies, to have lunch, to do the things that I love. And when I wasn't having time to do that, my heart wasn't singing anymore. And it was starting to affect my team. It was getting stress in the office. And life is a big pivot. You just pivot. I went down this path and said, nope, no, I'm going to pivot here. It's best thing I've ever done. The back end support that I have, but I'm back to being able to be creative again. And that I love.
Well, and such a big nugget of what you've shared so far today is that such a key part of your success has been, houses have just been a byproduct of your bigger purpose, which
Absolutely.
is people.
Yeah.
But we have to ask, with a new chapter starting, any idea as far as, where you're going to pivot to next, or
I don't
what your
know.
focus is?
I always take life that when life brings me something, go for it, because why not? Good or bad, you've had the experience. I am such a big proponent of experiences. Experiences, knowledge is knowledge. Where can you find, what do you pay amount for the experiences that you get in life? If it's travel, or if it's the people you meet, or the homes you sell, the knowledge in selling this many homes. I was just telling my team that this morning at our meeting. One of our gold is the amount of homes that we've sold in the situations of each home, because not one home is the same. You can have someone say, I'll never clear that WDO. And you're like, okay, so how do we get around that? Someone will say, this is in probate. It's going to take a year. All right, how do we get around that? Learn the probate system. Learn what is a powder beetle? What is this? It's the knowledge is power.
Being a problem solver, not a problem solver. Being a problem solver, not a problem spotter. There you go.
I love that.
Working in everybody, I think that's a huge thing. And, finding ways to overcome it. Again, back to not saying words like no and can't. And just one thing that I've loved from a mental conditioning expert, Trevor Moad, is he says, limit saying stupid things.
Oh, I love that.
Which is very basic in the sense of, if you're in the office, don't say, oh, I can't sell this house, or this house is a nightmare. By just limiting saying factors like that, you immediately set yourself one step forward by just completely cutting out. You don't have to be positive. You don't have to be negative. Just don't say it. Keep it off the table.
I love that. So one of our cardinal rules at our office is, if you have something come up, an opportunity that you need to overcome, maybe not even a problem, think about it for 2 hours. First off, if you make too quick of a decision, it might be the wrong. It might be the right one because it's your initial gut. 2 hours. Let's think about it. Let's talk about it. But like you just said, if you just spout off something, what are you putting out in the universe? So let's think about it. Let's think about all aspects, come to the table with solutions, and then attack it with full force where no is not an option.
Absolutely. Definitely agree on that one. So, Missy, you've led an extremely successful professional career as well as just family life, as a mother and a wife, everything across the board, from being a member of Cady Studios to taking a leap into real estate, and in 10 years creating a thriving brokerage here in Jacksonville, and now collaborating with Compass as well. So I have to ask, we've talked a lot of values and a lot of principles, but do you have any habits that you recommend anyone out there that you feel will help them have more value, bring more value to themselves, the people around them, that you think have helped you excel through your career over the years?
This is something I'm very passionate about, very, very passionate about, because I believe that is the key, and that is my morning routine. It is having that time for you. If you do not put yourself first and take care of yourself, you cannot lead others or help others. And if this isn't right, this can't be right. I religiously get up at a certain time in the morning, and I journal, and I read, and we go to the gym, and I walk and get coffee, and then I start my day. But I never leave my house without making my bed, ever, 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 because it's one thing. It's the Atomic Habits motto. Just one thing. And you come home and you're like, oh, I have already accomplished. If everything else goes wrong during the day, my bed is made. But it really psychologically propels you. So I've done this, I've got my coffee, I've worked out, I'm ready for the day. And you greet people with that instead of that, it's like rolling into the office, it's Monday morning. I love Monday mornings. It's like the fresh start of the week. Let's attack Monday mornings. So my morning routine is critical.
I love that, and totally echo the reading and journaling. I mean, with the clients we work with, that's the biggest thing we put, tell them about is that morning routine is just kickstart the day. And actually, what you mentioned a minute ago, I just finished reading The Surrender Experiment.
Oh, really?
By
I've
Michael
not read
Singer.
that.
And he talks about, facing what's right in front of you and letting that kind of be your guiding light. But one of the things I wanted to mention too is like, I've seen firsthand. I mean, you actually sold one of my properties for me. We closed 3 months ago.
Yep.
And I'd had another agent previously. We'd been through 3 or 4 contracts. All of them fell through. My agent said, sorry, I don't want to work with, I don't want to try and sell this house anymore. So I call you up and, you came in, we staged it. We did some repairs. You recommended the contractors and got a full price offer. Had a VA loan, so we had some hoops we had to jump through. But, I can definitely, testify firsthand that you guys are the real deal. And I just loved your passion, your energy, the fact that, if there was a problem, you were like, okay, how are we going to fix it?
Right.
And so I just love that about kind of the way that you operate. And, John Maxwell talks about the law of the lid in terms of, in order for your team to get better, you have to raise your personal lid.
Yes.
And you definitely do that in your own personal life. And but I wanted to ask too, so for anybody going into real estate, sales, anybody running their own business, I mean, what would be some advice you would have for them, kind of looking back on some of the things you've learned?
I would say 100% join a team, because instead of trying to start out on your own and just you actually start creating habits that are incorrect. Join a team that already has it figured out, and then you can mirror and match. You can learn from that, and then as you grow, if you've decided that you grow out of a team role into a single agent, that's great. But what you've done is created that groundwork of working together with a team. I feel that way with my own team. I say that to them all the time. I would just want to create and give them that basis so they can go out and take on the world.
Definitely. And for anyone wondering how to find a team, this is something I've thought a lot about recently, is seeking out a mentor is super important, and you do have to do it yourself. You do have to find a person, find someone, and give them a reason to invest in you, So with that said, that kind of brings me to another point of kind of as we talk about younger people, and I know, like you said, you just love pouring into people and adding value and really rooting for the underdog. So something I want to talk about real quick before we wrap up is the current state of the real estate market. At the time of recording, we're about 3 months into 2022 here. We had a crazy year in 2020, obviously. 2021, it seemed like the bull just kept running. And now into this market, I know recently you've said, you see a lot of kind of these smaller players, the underdogs, so to say, struggling to find places to get into and stuff. So what would you say for first-time home buyers and stuff like that, for people that are looking to buy homes right now? What type of challenges can they expect, or what's the best way that they can try to find that first home?
So I think that obviously the 2020 changed our lives. Everybody's life changed. 21 was kind of a continuation, and now we're into the world being in such an uproar. People are unsettled. They're not certain. And in our life, in any job you do, if you can be that calm in the storm, if you can be the anchor, if you can be that person that says, okay, we're going to help you with this. So as for first-time home buyers, find an agent that is authentic and cares, that is not looking just to make a sale, that's not looking just to add more numbers to their pipeline, but actually cares about you as a person and is willing to think of ideas to get you accepted. How are they going to take you to that finish line? And to understand what they're going through, because it is not an easy market right now. The first-time home buyers, for every home that I put on the market, I get 30 offers. So that means 29 people didn't get that home. So it's those kind of things. Find somebody that cares about you.
Find a good agent to represent best as possible.
And someone that is authentic and just truly cares to get you in a home.
Definitely. Well, if you're in the Jacksonville area, you know who to call, of course. Definitely over at Cady Realty, they'll take great care of you, help add that value that you'll be looking for. So, Missy, it's been a pleasure having you here today. We really appreciate you sharing your story and just not holding back and adding so much value to me and Brian and all of our listeners at home. Your attitude, your outlook on life is built off of these amazing values and principles that align perfectly with ours at grit.org. And you've inspired me to really continue pushing. And I'm sure you inspired all of our listeners at home today as well. Working hard and creating that success for yourself is awesome, but not selling your soul in the process. Continuing to remember the way you were raised and remember who you have always felt you wanted to be, and continuing to always chase that person day in, day out. So just one last question I have for you, as we ask all our guests this question before we finish off, but what part of the Grit Creed resonates most with you and why?
I don't find an excuse, I find a way. I love that. And then I'm not a problem spotter, problem solver. I mean, I was like, yeah, those are mine.
Yeah, real easy just to dive into those. Again, they really align with who you are and everything you've
absolutely.
done. So did you have a question?
Yeah, appreciate you being on, Missy. This has been fantastic.
Thank you. This is great. It's my first experience doing something like this, and I love it. But like I said, I think I'd like to add, from the moment you walked in, it's like values align. It's like you were authentic. You weren't just selling something, you believed in it. And I think that is what it is if you believe in something, people know that. If you believe in, I mean, think of Sarah Blakely. She believed in women's underwear. I mean, she literally took her idea. She believed in it so much, she is a billionaire. And the world laughed at her, and she still wears her red backpack. But she believed in her product. She believed in herself. She believed in people. And I love that. She is my ultimate, someone that I mean, she is an amazing human.
Absolutely. Well, if you don't know Sarah Blakely, please look up her story. That's an incredible one as well. If you need some inspiration and really need to, just as Missy said, see what it really means to believe in a product. So anyhow, thank you again, Missy, so much for being here. Thank you, everyone at home. That's a wrap for today here at the Grit.org podcast. Please check out our other episodes. Leave us a comment. Tell us something you loved about Missy's story. Share this with someone you think it would resonate with or impact. And as always, we appreciate you tuning in for another episode of the Grit.org podcast.